He's Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken podcast. And Blake, we're back for another
Yep.
Grumpy Goat requested movie review. Jet Vanian requested that we review Any Which Way You Can, starring Clint Eastwood.
Got to tell you, Ronnie, when this was recommended, I immediately texted you or called you. I can't remember because it's been a couple of weeks. And I said, we got to do away with this. We can't give the power to the people. I mean, Jet is showing us by recommending this that we just can't make that mistake, because now I got to spend 2 hours watching a movie I've never heard of. And you said, to your credit, you said, Blake, relax. It's a Clint Eastwood movie. He don't make bad movies.
I did say that, but after I saw the trailer, I was like, oh no.
And I agreed with you out loud. I said, yeah, okay. But then I hung up and I said, in my mind, but Ronnie, it's Clint Eastwood and an effing gorilla. And it's a sequel on top of that. It's a sequel to a movie I've never seen before. So I went into this in a very negative state of mind. So I just want to throw that out there before we go into this review.
And I said it on a previous live stream. Jet Vanian is my new favorite Grumpy Goat because he suggested a winner, and he did it the right way. Because I'm like you, I was like, okay, Any Which Way You Can. I've always heard about the Clint Eastwood movie where he's got the gorilla, but I don't know anything about it. So I'm laying in bed, and I watched the trailer, and my wife is looking at it, and she goes, Jesus, that's awful looking. And I was like, I know, right? So we start watching it, and I'm like, this is not bad. This is like it's set in the Smokey and the Bandit universe. You've got this character and that character, and there's great Southern music, and there's really no gigantic plot. These guys are going place to place just to fight. They're down on. It's almost like a Western, Blake, in the fact that Orville and Philo, is it Philo Beto? That's his name. Philo Beto, I think is his name. It's like Orville and Philo are living in the old West, and they're down on their luck guys, and they just do what they need to do to get money. And instead of gunfights, it's bare knuckle boxing. That apparently there's like a bare knuckle boxing circuit all around the West Coast, and we find out in this movie all around the country, where they get together and they fight for money, and the cops are in on it, and the mob's in on it. And whoever wins gets the cash, and everybody standing around chooses to bet. And it's just a great old time. And I was so fascinated when I watched this. I was like, this movie is fantastic. So I went back and I watched Every Which Way But Loose, because I'm like, there's got to be some stuff I'm missing. And Blake, there isn't. Every Which Way But Loose is not as good as Any Which Way You Can. It picks up with Philo. He's already got Clyde, so there's no backstory about him taking Clyde. He won it in a fight. Him and Orville are doing the same thing. He meets this chick, Lynn Halsey. She runs off and disappears, and he thinks that her manager or her ex-boyfriend must have taken her away. So they take a road trip to go look, and along the way, they're fighting. They pick up Clark Griswold's wife, and he ends up finding out that she's just a gigantic piece of shit. And she gets with every man that she can, and she beats his face in. And along the way, he finds out, hey, the best bare knuckle boxer of all time is in Denver. He's in this town. So he goes to fight him. And the guy's older and overweight, and Clint Eastwood is beating the piss out of this guy. And he's listening to the crowd go, oh, he's done. He's a loser. So Philo takes a dive. He lets the old guy punch him in the face, and he goes down, and Orville's looking at him, and he just winks at Orville. And like Tank, whatever his name is, gets to go out a champion. And that's how the movie ends. They get in the car and they go home. That's Every Which Way But Loose. And this one picks up, and now I know why Jet would suggest the sequel. It is so much better. This movie was fantastic. And I know I just talked for 7 minutes, but
no, that was beautiful, Ronnie. I agree 1,000%. I had such a good time. I was sick when I spent $2.99 to rent this on Amazon Prime. Money well spent. I watched this movie like 4 times in a row. I mean, my wife, are you watching this Clint Eastwood movie again? I'm like, yes, get out.
It's great.
It's such a good movie. It's like you said, it's simple. Like I don't have a lot to think about. It's just manly men punching each other for money. I mean, it's such a simple concept. It's such an easy watch. It's not too goofy. It's not too serious. It balances that perfect line of just like I said, it's just a simple movie, man. Like you said, I had such a good time with this, and like I was going into this thinking, okay, so this is what I'm thinking at first. He's got a monkey with him, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, he's gonna get paired with this monkey somehow,
Not like it.
not like it, then grow to be attached to it, and then something happens where the bad guys steal it or it runs away. And then, and because I mean, Any Which Way You Can, it's a sequel to Any Which Way With Loose. I'm thinking it's some kind of like chase movie, you know, or getaway movie. I'm thinking that's the conflict we're going to have. And the tough, rugged guy, Clint Eastwood, is going to end up being a softie who loves animals by the end of the movie. Way wrong. Way wrong. And I'm glad I was way wrong. This movie's great.
This movie is fantastic. And, you know, going back and I'm like, why would Clint Eastwood do a movie with the orangutan or whatever it is? It's just a character that's there and it works. Even in Every Which Way But Loose, the character, I think that orangutan is not as charming as the one in Any Which Way You Can, if that makes sense. But him punching Cholo from the Black Widows in the face is what gets the Black Widows chasing Philo. So now I've got the backstory there. But then that's really the only backstory I needed was and the mother, Philo's mother. I wanted to know what her deal was. Is she the standard stereotypical old lady that likes to cuss? What's the deal there? And yeah, I mean, she's cursing up a storm in every which way but loose, and she's cussing up a storm in this movie. So I really like this movie, and I really like the characters, and I can't wait to good, bad, and ugly the hell out of this right off the bat. Okay, Blake. All right, Blake. So what is your good?
My first good is going to be what we talked about during the intro, the relationship between Philo, Clint Eastwood, and Clyde, the orangutan. And it's because it threw me for such a loop. I told you what I was expecting going into it. I was expecting some, I don't want you living with me, you're a wild animal. I was expecting that sort of relationship storyline. Instead, we just get, it's more of a friendship than a pet thing. And they communicate with each other with hand signals, with English. I mean, it's
the monkey the money. He says, "Here, take this 10 grand and go hide it from mom." And the monkey
everybody thinks he's joking. He's like, Clyde's my manager. He handles all my money. And Clyde hides the money all over the house. And, you know, he tells Clyde, hey, the man's back. Go get his money. And he goes and fetches the money. I mean, he tells him which way to turn. Right turn, Clyde. I mean, he helps him drive a little bit. He takes him to the bar with him. I mean, it's just the relationship between those two. The reason I love it so much is because it's just pure. And I was expecting conflict. I was expecting Clyde to cost him something. And when he disappoints his owner, you know, for him to run away. I kept expecting that, or I was expecting the mob or the bookie at the end to kidnap Clyde.
Yeah.
We never got that. And I think that's why I fell in love with the relationship between these two, because it's just such a genuine friendship and they need each other. Clyde saves Clint's life or Philo's life. I mean, he's knocked out next to a truck that's on fire and Clyde drags him away from there. And, yeah, man. So that's going to be my very first good is the relationship between Clyde and Philo. I just loved it.
There's a scene in Every Which Way But Loose where Clint Eastwood gets drunk and Beverly D'Angelo is a chick they pick up along the way, and Orville, played by Jeffrey Lewis, who is great in this movie. And I'm pretty sure he's wearing a toupee with a hat on top of it, but that's fine. He was the captain in Tango and Cash.
Yep.
And I think he played one of the fathers or one of the father figures in Double Impact with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I could be wrong on the movie, but I think he was in that. But he is really good as Orville in this movie. But there's a scene where Clint Eastwood gets drunk and he just busts into the motel room. He's like, okay, y'all get up. You got somebody. I almost got somebody. He's got nobody. Get up. Let's go. And they're like, what are you talking about? We got to get Clyde laid. He's like drunk and making these guys are crazy. They're like they're just nuts because whatever they feel like doing, they do. Like Clint's a ladies' man in the first one. He's a ladies' man in this one. Uh, I mean, you're absolutely right. The Clyde thing, I was never expecting it to be that good. I was expecting a gimmick, and they sort of do gimmick it up a little bit here in this movie with the "Hey Clyde, scrap the car," or "Hey Clyde, right turn," where he's always punching somebody. The relationship between these two is a really strong relationship, and that's kind of crazy coming from me when it's Clint Eastwood and a damn orangutan.
You're right. He does play in Tango and Cash, talking about Jeffrey Lewis. He's also in Double Impact, like you said. You would probably know him from Fletch Lives.
Yes, he is in Fletch Lives.
I know him from Maverick. He's in Maverick, the movie Maverick.
He is in Maverick. I remember him in Maverick now. I can't remember how we did this last time, Blake, but we can go back and forth. Okay. I want to tell you one of my good is the characters in this movie. They're absolutely fantastic. Even the characters that we don't even care about are still good. I mean, you've got Philo, you've got Orville, you've got Ma, you've even got Lynn who shows up after breaking Clint's heart in the first movie. She's back, and Orville's like, it's been 2 years, or he didn't get off the. It might not have been 2 years, but he's like, for 2 months he was just out of it, and I've been trying to take care of. And also a lot of that's like the little brother syndrome, where he sees the girl coming back and he knows he's going to lose all his free time or all his main time with Philo. And even Clint says that in a section. He goes, "Hell, I'd be pissed off too. I know what you're feeling. I know." But the characters in this movie are great, and even Jack Wilson. The movie centers around the mob wants Philo to fight the East Coast bare knuckle fighter Jack Wilson, because Jack Wilson is so good they can't get anybody to take a fight with him. They can't get good odds to make money, so they find the guy on the West Coast, Clint Eastwood, Philo Beto, and they schedule a fight. And they're going to give Clint Eastwood 25 grand, win or lose. So he sees that as a way to fix up Ma's house and get him some money. And Jack Wilson shows up, Blake, and I knew who this guy was immediately. It's the bad guy from Red Dawn. It's the bad guy from
Eye the Tiger.
I make the rules. And this may be his best role he's ever had. He is so likable in this movie. See if you can find what his name is in real life.
It's William Smith.
William Smith. I don't know if he was wearing a toupee or not, but he's a good-looking guy in this movie. Him and Philo are jogging because he's like asking questions, and Philo knows immediately who this guy is. He's not stupid. I mean, you just don't have a random jacked-up guy that's standing on the path. He goes, "Keep up if you can," and they're jogging and they're talking, and then Clint Eastwood saves his life because he tells him, "Don't get too close to that shoulder there," and it collapses. And Jack Wilson could have died right there and it's over, but no, he saves his life.
When he falls right there, Ronnie, are we supposed to see that rope?
I don't think so. that's what my wife said. She goes, "Oh, lucky that rope was there."
Luckily, that rope is buried into the side of the mountain. Yeah, I was wondering about that. I don't know if you're finished or not, but that goes right into my second good is the relationship between Philo Beto and Jack Wilson, the guy who he's going to fight. Because again, they just threw me for a loop. You expect these guys to be at odds the whole movie, and they're not. They're almost instantly friends.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of Rad. At the end of Rad, Bart Taylor, he could have won the race, but he just stops and he's like, "Come on, let's do this fair and square." And then they race and he loses, and they end up becoming best friends and partners. It starts off with Jack Wilson, like you said. He comes, he sees him training. He's like, "Okay, that's Philo." He starts running with him, starts asking him questions. Wow, it's a good grip. He's just feeling him out for what kind of fighter he is. And they go drinking. And Philo, Clint Eastwood's like, "So, did you find out what you want to find out?"
There's like a huge brawl. And like Jack Wilson even takes like a dive. He lets that guy punch him and he falls down like he's hurt. And then he watches Philo beat like the whole bar down, and he only gets involved when he's about to get stabbed. And then Clint Eastwood, reveals it. He goes, You see everything you need to see? And he goes,
He's like, I think I did. I think I did. You like pain, don't you? You enjoy it. And they just start going back and forth. And what I love, Ronnie, it's almost like neither one of them want to fight.
no. And that's what Jack tells him. He's like,
What do you say we call this off?
yeah, there ain't no need for this to happen.
And you think it's because my first thought, I'm not going to say you think, because he's scared of Philo, but it's not. He sees that they have the same mentality. They enjoy pain.
Yeah.
And Jack Wilson, what you forgot to mention about him, he's already known for killing a couple of people in these fights. So he knows that he enjoys pain. Philo enjoys pain. And if these guys fight, someone's going to die. And so he's like, what do you say we just call this off, man? I mean, you know, it's just not going to help any one of us out.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt you. You don't want to hurt me.
He actually says there's no point in it. And Philo says, I don't do it for points. And he just starts laughing. And he's like, you're good.
I don't want to hurt you. And that's true.
Sometimes we can't always do what we want to, right?
You're good. And then later on down the movie, you know, probably 3/4 down the movie, same thing. Jack shows up in the middle of a conflict. They help each other out. And they go their own separate way because they know they're going to fight soon. I mean,
they actually call the fight off. Philo reconnects with Lynn, and Orville has found out just how dangerous Jack Wilson is, and he tells her, and she's like, don't do this. And even Ma says, don't do this. And he goes, okay, it's over with. And he tells the mob, and the mob says, no, you're not canceling this fight. So they kidnap Lynn. They try to kill Clint, and him and Jack go and fight the mob together. Orville gets blasted, which I was like, damn, that seems way out of place in this movie for that guy just to shoot him in the side, right? I mean, in the shoulder right there. And the fight's over with, and they're not going to fight. And then all of a sudden, it's sort of like the Rocky III moment. They're like, we're always going to wonder, aren't we? And then they go into like a little barn or a little building, and they start fighting, and it spills out. And back to my good, the characters are all amazing. Even the Black Widows, as silly as they are in this movie, they're good characters because they have that redeeming moment at the end of it where they save Philo from getting shot and they get the money and they actually feel big and bad again. They have that silly scene where they go through tar and they all hardened up and they got no hair and they're all wearing wigs and the cops pull them over and he's like, well, y'all just go.
You know, Ronnie, it's weird that you mention a Rocky III comparison because I'm going to say Rocky V. When those two go into that barn to fight and it's just them two duking it out and then everybody's kind of gathered around. So in Rocky V, they start off in the bar. There's conflict in the bar, right?
Yeah.
And then they spill out into the streets and that's when it gets real. Well, they throw each other through the wall of this barn and now there's a crowd and it's just, the cops are there. The whole town is there. It's the biggest fight of the century, and everyone's there to watch this street fight take place. And that's why it kind of reminded me of Tommy Gunn and Rocky from Part 5.
It reminded me part of it like Blazing Saddles at the very end of it when the fight breaks out but it's not stupid. They're going through the walls and then they're look. My second one besides the character, let's go ahead and get my second good out of the way, Blake. My last good are the fight scenes. The fight scenes in this whole two-picture universe, Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, are great. They're simplistic. They look real. It's like how a real fight would be. Somebody punch somebody. Somebody would punch somebody in the face, and and then they hug up and they punch it and they punch it. It's an awesome aspect of this movie. The fights and that fight at the very end of this movie, for as crazy and as climactic as it is with them busting through walls and these damn gamblers driving the airplane down the road and when they realize, hey, the fight's still on, and the old ladies that are betting on the fight. It is absolutely wonderfully crazy, and I'm all for it. I mean, and I'm telling you, I got so much Smokey and the Bandit from this movie. I really like this movie. I love the characters. I love the fights. And at the end, when he like kicks him in the arm and he's like, oh, your arm's broke. This one's over. This is over. And Clint Eastwood keeps fighting with one arm and he gets him and he knocks him out there at the end of it. And Jack Wilson comes to him and he goes, was I out? He goes, yeah. He goes, how long? long enough. And like he helps him up and they just wander off. I mean, that's the end of the movie. They just had to see who would win the fight. I love this movie. I mean, I really like, I love this movie. I'm going to say that should be the name of this review. I love this movie. All right. Any more good for you, Blake?
That's it, man.
All right. Let's switch to the bad. What's your bad in this movie?
This weird subplot they kind of introduced toward the end of the movie where the bookie has taken on too many bets and he's not going to do juice or something along those lines. It's like and he allows a bigger bookie to come over the top and place like $1 million bets. And he's not countering it because he thinks Jack Wilson is going to win. Something along those lines that I don't feel like they did a good job explaining, or they didn't go enough into it, which maybe that's a positive that they didn't just dive too much into that storyline. But yeah, I just felt like that was a waste of time. I would have much rather saw more Jack Wilson and more Philo instead of centering around these bookie guys. I know why they're there. We had to have them kidnap Sandra Locke's character, and we had to have a reason to get Philo to the fight. But I just, that would be the only, well, it's not the only one because I got another bad, but I was going to say that's a negative on this film for me is this whole subplot with the bookie and his, his issues that he's having with this money. Because, I mean, at some point he tries to leave with the money without paying or something like that.
They don't have enough money. Like I think it was something along the lines of, instead of just staying out of it, they were and making a few $100,000. They actually bet all of their money that they had to pay out the people on Jack Wilson, which is why he calls for that one guy to try to kill Philo at some point. And at the end of it, they don't have enough money to cover the bet. So you just assume they're going to get killed by that big mobster. But the whole side plot, Blake, that they put in of bettors and stuff like that. I was wondering if you noticed our special cameo at the beginning of it, Blake. One of our favorite characters of all time. At the beginning of the movie, they show this group of people that are betting on a cobra versus, was it a mongoose?
I think it's a ferret.
It's a mongoose, I think. It's supposed to be a mongoose. And the guy that says, here, use my back, victim, from Running Man is the guy that brings it in. Arnold stabs him with the pen, and he turns around, looks at him, and goes, don't forget to send me a copy.
Forget to send me a copy.
And he takes off running. He's the guy in there trying to act big and bad. But one of his bodyguards, Blake, is Mr. Gibb himself, Donald Gibb, the ogre, right there, walking him in. I don't know if you noticed that. And Blake, believe it or not, I didn't even have to look this up. I spotted ogre myself. So if that's not really ogre, then it's a damn lookalike.
Let's see if that really is Donald Gibb, because I did not.
That's Donald Gibb right there. Look at that guy. Look, that's Sex Pot, 1980. He's 4 years away from being ogre.
Dude, he looks so good, too, with that suit on. Let's see here.
I love that you're looking it up. We just saw the dude's face.
Donald Gibb. He's henchman, uncredited.
Hey, did you catch the other thing right here? The old couple that has sex in the movie after everybody has sex, including Ma. And I loved what they did with Ma. She's all sour and old the whole movie. And then at the end of it, at a certain point in it, she has sex, and then she's all quiet and sweet in the car.
Ronnie, I immediately knew that that's the lady from the Goonies, and that's the guy from Scrooge, the homeless guy from Scrooge. They're actually married in real life.
Yeah, and they're actually kissing each other in Scrooge at the very end of it. When it shows the bums, it's her and him, and he's kissing her while the song's going on. That's the reason I brought that up after the fairy guy dies. So I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, they introduced that and that country guy whose name I'm supposed to know that is driving the plane down the road.
Yeah.
The whole mob scene, I understand why it's there, but it wasn't that bad to me. You said you had another bad? Go for it.
My second bad is that we didn't get enough fights, Ronnie. And I know that's kind of being greedy because there's an argument to be made that there's just the perfect amount of fights with the opening fight of him fighting the cop, and then the bar fight in the middle, and then the showdown with Jack Wilson at the end. But I was just so intrigued with with the fight scenes, with the legend of Philo, and I wish I could have got a little more. It kind of makes me want to, especially after you talked about the original, I want to go back and watch the original just to see him fight in that one. But maybe they could have threw us a Jack Wilson fight in there, or like footage of a Jack Wilson fight or something like that. But yeah, I felt like, when we were at the junkyard or whatever at Philo's business, like maybe we could replace those scenes of Clyde scrapping the caddy or scrapping the Merc. And give me another fight scene to prove that that's really how he makes money. That's really how he takes care of his family and stuff like that. I could have used a couple of more Philo and Jack Wilson fights in this one. So
that was I only got one bad in this. I was going to go the whole Lynn Halsey route and say there's no way Clint would have taken her back after everything she did to him, because he's a really guarded person in every which way but loose. He says that. He goes, I don't let anybody in. But he is a ladies' man, but he uses and abuses them. But this one got him. He went to save her, and then he realized she had been playing him the whole time, that she's just a hoe bag that sings and tries to get with people and then runs, and she beats him in the face till he's all bloody, and he just walks off all sad. So for him to walk into that bar, which is a great bar, by the way, Blake, it seems like the perfect place to be. The music in this movie, if I'd have had another good, I love the music in this movie. It is perfect for this movie. But the him going in that bar and her walking down there, I took this gig just so, and she acts like she has a relationship with Clyde, but I'm pretty sure she's never met Clyde. I don't think she ever met Clyde in that first movie. So, and Clyde at the bar is great, because that guy in the yellow shirt talking to Lou Brown and goes, what's that filthy ape doing in here? Clyde's a clean ape. And then Clyde bends that metal, and then he goes over in that guy's lap and he takes the cigar out of his mouth and he kisses him. And then what popped me is he opens his nostril up right before they cut away, which is great. He's digging that guy's nose.
I forgot to mention the Lou Brown cameo that we got. I mean, and it's such a good role too. Like, he's the bartender. It's like, you don't mess with Clyde. You mentioned he bends that steel bar, and he's like, he can stay. He can stay. I like that little silly comedy. I love that style of, first off, he's so drunk he wants to fight a gorilla.
Yes.
He wants to fight an ape, because that's what you do in a bar. If you don't have a woman next to you, you immediately got to start some stuff, And he sees that ape, that orangutan bend that metal bar, and he's like, I ain't messing with it. He's fine. He can stay.
What did you catch Emmett from Roadhouse's cameo in this movie as the guy working behind the counter at one of those random motels that they're at?
Are you messing with me?
No, Emmett's in here. That's the guy wearing the onesie, right? That's Emmett, the one he stayed in his barn. He's in this movie. You ain't got to look it up. I guarantee he's not the guy that did the.
I do got to look it up.
Did he walk outside? Is he the guy that walked outside and opened his coat up for Clyde because he thought it was a woman or whatever?
No, that can't be him. No.
I mean, there was two perverted ones. I don't think Emmett was the perverted one. I think it was the other one that the mom ends up getting with, that opened his coat up for Clyde. But no, Emmett's in this movie. You can look it up all you want. But there's a scene where Clint Eastwood, they go and get Clyde another woman, and he's got his own hotel room with the female gorilla. Meanwhile, Clint is hanging from the chandelier like Clyde is in the other one. And while that sounds ridiculous, Clint Eastwood hanging from a chandelier, it's awesome because it fits this movie perfectly. They said that Clint Eastwood was warned not to do a movie like this. Why would you do a movie like this coming off your movies that you just did? And the first one made like 85 million, and Blake, this one made like $70 million. So he backed himself going into movies like this, and it ended up paying off for him. And is there any better looking guy than Clint Eastwood in this movie? He's gorgeous, dude. And any which way you can, he's all jacked up. He's like the ultimate male in this movie. He can fight. He's carrying around engine blocks. He's getting the girls. He's got a orangutan for a buddy. His brother, he's half goofy. I mean, they have no worries in the world. And that's the reason I liken this movie to a Western, because they just hang around until it's time to go make some money. And like I said earlier, instead of a gunfight, it's a fist fight.
It is him, Ronnie.
I know it's him. You're not dealing with a novice here, Blake. Is that all your bad?
That's all my bad. Like, I mean, honestly, it was tough to come up with those two. I really enjoyed this movie, man.
All right, let's switch over to the ugly, Blake. And for people that don't know, and this is only our second time to do this, or third time. Nope, second time. So good, bad, and the ugly. The ugly for us is, who is the ugliest person in this movie to you, Blake?
You're way better at this than I am. You proved that with your Tom Savini pick. There's something about Jack Wilson's face in this that, like, I asked you, I was like, did he just have surgery or something? I mean, specifically the scene where he's sitting at the bar, it looks like you could just peel his face off. It looks like something is messed up with his eye. And I'm like, okay, he looks like that because he's a fighter. No, like, this is how he really looks. And for me, like, yeah, you can make the joke that, Clint Eastwood squeeze. It was a squeeze in real life too. Sandra Locke, surfboard, total surfboard. You could argue her. But it's Jack Wilson's face for me. He's going to be the ugliest human in this movie.
I'm going with Chola, the leader of the Black Widows, Blake.
Oh, wow.
Real name is John Quaid, I believe.
Yeah.
He is so coated down with makeup in this movie, and it didn't help. Bless his heart, he is one of the ugliest human beings I've ever seen in a movie. He is disgusting, but in a charming way. The bald cap didn't help him at all. He's got the belly showing the whole time. He's the best. He's really good, and I love his last lines to Philo, where he gives him the $40 that he says he owes him because of hauling their ass over to the scrapyard or wherever they hauled them to. That was a really fitting end to the Black Widows, Philo Beto rivalry, I thought, especially after the way they chased him across the world and every which way but loose.
Well, yeah, and they ended up betting on him at the end of this one, right? I mean, they won all the money, and they're going to fix they're going to fix their crew up, their bikes up, and everything. And yeah, you're right. So for them to actually thank Philo, give him the $40, and kind of just ride off into the sunset, and it's comical at the same time. It's a feel good moment, but it's also comical because they're still wearing wigs from when they lost their hair. So yeah, I mean, it was a really good ending. But my thing about the ending though, Ronnie, did Philo ever get his $25,000?
Well,
I don't think he did.
I'm sure they got paid.
Think about it, Ronnie. He gave the money back, and then they come and kidnapped his squeeze, and then they go get the squeeze, and then him and Jack fight in the barn. I don't know when he could have got his money.
Well, Orville bet on him, so they got money there.
Well,
Blake, I forgot to give my bad. So
did you?
Yeah, the Clyde transitions. And what I mean by that is there was a couple of scenes in this movie where they just show Clyde like hanging from a tree and like jumping on a picnic table. And it just seemed like it was there, as our buddy John McBride would say, for filler. And that's the closest thing I have to a bad in this movie. So there it is, people. That's the good, the bad, the ugly from 1980s, Any Which Way You Can, and why Hugh Jackman has not tried to be the 2010s and 20s version of Clint Eastwood. I have zero idea, because not only are they similar looking, but he's got the perfect Clint Eastwood impression when he does Wolverine. So why hasn't Hugh Jackman had Clint Eastwood's career? Clint Eastwood, I'm going to tell you right now, Blake, Clint Eastwood has jumped so high from watching these two movies. I know it's ridiculous, but now he will be in my top 3 of actors that I really like, with Burt Reynolds and Kurt Russell. That's how much these two movies did for Clint Eastwood. And I've always been a Clint Eastwood fan. I love Unforgiven. All right. I love his movies, but these two movies.
Ronnie, our grandfather was obsessed with Clint Eastwood.
Really?
Yes. He watched Clint Eastwood movies every day. Two Mules for Sister Sarah.
Well, there you go.
Anything
else we're leaving out?
I will say this, for all you members out there, the bar has been set. The bar has been set between Darren picking my favorite zombie movie of all time, Dawn of the Dead 78, and then Jet coming in right in behind him with this Clint Eastwood classic. All I'm going to say is whoever's next, you better bring it. You better effing bring it.
All right. Thank you guys for being patrons. Thank you for being Grumpy Goat members. We really appreciate that you guys like our content enough to actually spend money to support this channel. Can't thank you enough. Hope you guys stay on board for another month. Blake, we will be spinning the wheel pretty soon and decide what our next good, bad, and ugly is going to be. Until next time, he's Blake. I'm Ronnie. We're out.
Hey, your internet's working really good.
Thank you.